Well, I think she can survive it. Yeah, I think she'll be okay. Okay, reviewing an old 1990 game. What the heck is even the point? I think a lot of us, by the way, get really jaded by the idea of something like this because there are people that went out and did fan translations, and so many years ago, fans of Fire Emblem or people that were curious about Fire Emblem probably could have just gone back and played this fan translation on their computer, which is unfortunate because it's so great that Nintendo has finally embraced this idea of actually translating a game that they never translated before and put it into a official package. I find value in that, and I freaking love what they did with the collector's edition where you had like a mock-up NES cart, albeit completely translucent, but like a really solid, like, you know, NES box and all this stuff. Oh man, I live for this. Like when they announced this, I wasn't even a Fire Emblem fan. I played like 2 games, I think. I played Shadows of Valentia and what's it called? You know, that first one, Awakening, on the 3DS. They were good. They were not bad games, but like it never kind of convinced me to be a super fan. And I've always wanted to play the game with Marth in it, but I never was like as big into Fire Emblem enough to go through the channels of doing those fans translations. And you know what? I'm glad that I didn't do that because it definitely added to the hype of this idea that Nintendo put forward. Now the question is it worth your time? Is it worth your money? Now, if you're like a retro dude like me, I'm going to show you a clip of my basement right now where I collect NES boxes and I collect, you know, games from various eras and stuff like that. That sort of thing is fascinating to me, and so getting the NES box of Fire Emblem in a collector's edition is an awesome value at $50. You don't only get that, like you also get like this art book over here that has all the art from the first Fire Emblem game, and not just the first release. There are many like re-releases and remakes and stuff like that, and character appearances in other Fire Emblem games. It's actually a very fascinating book, and it's all tailored and well made, and for $50, that's not too bad. Let's just pretend that you don't get the game at all and you're just buying all this MacGuffins for $50. I think it's a good $50 MacGuffin box. But suppose you just want to play the game for $6 before it goes away in March 31st, the doomsday for all new Nintendo games for some reason. You may want to pick this one up. It's up to you, but let me help guide you into whether or not this decision sounds like a smart idea for you. First of all, you have to have the right mindset for older games. 1990, it's the very first release of Fire Emblem. There is no precedent set before it in terms of these strategy RPGs. And of course, as the series goes on, they make subtle improvements here and there with each game. So the idea here is that you're supposed to appreciate it for what it was, not how it stacks against what's available today. And Nintendo also kind of realized that despite the fact that it hopes that you have this idea of what you're going to be doing with these games, which is, you know, appreciating an old piece of art, they still put in quality of life improvements to help you through the game, and they are really important for a game like Fire Emblem, the original release in 1990. Let's go through them real quick. You have the speed up feature, which has speed up for all gameplay, speed up for just the enemy turns, and it increases the speed by 2. Not a bad idea. Here's the one thing that I really hate about this whole collection. This is actually probably the only legitimate complaint that I have about this game and what Nintendo did with this release, is that for some reason, it speeds up the game's music as well. Now, you can circumvent this for sure. They have an in-game option to turn off the music. The developers were gracious enough to make sure that your ears weren't bleeding from hearing the same tune for over 30 hours. That was nice of them. However, modern Nintendo is just like, how about you listen to that tune for 30 hours, but sped up? In a higher pitch. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, literally, there's a collection from a lesser company that has the same feature while also making sure the music doesn't change tempo. Come on, Nintendo. You are a huge company. You don't have to do the bare minimum in some cases. So that is the one thing I don't like. You can also create a bookmark, but you can only create one bookmark. And there's a rewind feature that also kind of allows you to go back to a turn just in case you may have messed up 2 or 3 turns before. So it basically makes it so that you can get through this game at whatever pace you like, whatever skill level you like. There's going to be people that are going to be really bad at this. There's going to be people that are really good at this and not going to need those features whatsoever, except for maybe the speed feature. I think nobody really wants to sit through some of these really slow animations. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I want to see what these characters do with new weapons and stuff like that. Oh, you can finally use Parthia. Dude, I can't wait to see what this looks like. Woo! Toasted. Alright, this is what Starlight looks like. It's a unique attack. That looks so wimpy. They all have unique animations, and again, on the NES, there's some pretty impressive stuff. But here's the meat and potatoes for me. Is this a good translation? This is obviously official from Nintendo. That's a big deal to me. Well, one of the coolest things about this release is that Nintendo used something called Lewis scripting. Now, I'm not going to confuse you with technical jargon here. The most important thing to know is that this program comes from the outside and it manipulates things within the game itself in a much easier way, which was something that was not available on original NES games. So technically, you couldn't even play this. You couldn't like dump this ROM and play it on your NES because something special is going on within this version of the game. But the outcome of this is that the translation is as good as it can possibly be. It is not primitive. It's not working within a confined space. It's like this, okay? The big problem that people had back in the day when translating NES games was that they would write out sentences in English and it would be like this long. Now, the Japanese characters can say the exact same thing in like this much space. And then a lot of games are built to work in this much space. So then English speakers have to say this much with this much space, which means that, you know, they could translate it properly, but they wouldn't be able to fit it all without crashing the game. And so they have to like do like little tiny, you know, primitive interpretations of what it's supposed to say. I hit my mic. Dang it. But now with Lewis scripting, whatever they said in Japanese that was stuck in here can now be expanded to here. And because of that, you get a much more descriptive translation than you normally do from the NES days. And the dialogue is pretty good. A lot of it's lore-based. There isn't a lot of internal struggle with the characters or anything quite like that. But there is some cool stuff. There was some things that I was a little surprised by. One of the most clever things I saw was that it was a plot device to revive Medius, the main bad guy of the game. And then funny enough, in one of the last chapters of the game, you can go to the place where he was revived and then revive one of your own units, which is a great injection of lore and got used in a layered sort of way. I was impressed by that. Now, gameplay wise, it's tough, okay? Look, you can get through it any way you see fit, like I said earlier, but oh my god, comparatively speaking, I did get to play a couple of other Fire Emblem games. I sampled them, all right? Actually, I'll do a side-by-side comparison right now between a remake that was on the Super Nintendo and this original NES one, and you can see for yourself how often you miss in the NES version versus how often you miss in this game, which is the exact same game, but made for the Super Nintendo. The developers knew that the hit rates in these old NES games, including Gaiden apparently, are just way too obnoxious. You will miss a lot. You will miss a lot, and oh my god, I cannot imagine trying to play this game without save states back in the day. Okay, Bantu, please. Do what I need you to do. Bantu. Bantu. No! Come on! You motherfucker. Ah! You basically can be like, okay, there's a solid chance, a really good chance, I'm probably gonna hit this guy and win. And when your character really needs that to happen, sometimes it was worth it. It was worth it. What the? This game is freaking. He has maxed out. He should not be missing. And you still miss the guy. You know, so it's like, despite the fact that you can really, like, you can do the numbers, which I don't even play Fire Emblem that way, really. You know, I just kind of have an idea. I feel out how good the characters are, and then I just kind of send them in and make sure that they're not being completely disadvantaged by, you know, weaknesses and strengths. But even then, sometimes I would lose a unit and I'm gonna be like, oh my freaking God, I'm 35 minutes into this game. How did that happen? All I can say is that it's a worthwhile experience. It's a really good game, and there are shortcomings for sure. Quality life improvements all over. You know, for example, you can't exchange items with characters that are holding on to the items before you start a chapter. You have to put it all into a convoy before you end a chapter, which takes a lot of time. Again, little things that are kind of archaic. Really great quality of life improvements as the series goes on, including its own remakes. But you can easily forgive all this when you consider the fact that this is the very first one in the series. And for all the things they haven't figured out just quite yet, they did so much right. Like, this is actually a very meaty experience with lots of story and a lot of very solid strategy involved. I do think that for the sake of understanding where the series came from, who Marth is, how he was interpreted way back on his very first game, it's worth it to pick this up for $6. Dude, you can do this. I know you can do this. I just did this. Why not? You could do it. $6, not too shabby. I recommend you pick it up. And yeah, if you like this, let me know. Maybe I'll do some more reviews. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Thanks for watching. Here we go. Ooh, that's not good. Oh, well, it doesn't matter.